Berkeley had such a great pre-med program that it showed you everything about your future as a physician, which convinced me pretty damn soon that I was not cut out to deal with sick people. Didn't even like sick people. I said, oh, I guess I'll have to be a pathologist. Then I can just deal with cadavers. Sure. That'll be fun. All the staring was diagnostic.
Right. Interesting.
And staring at nature, which I was really interested in spaces, in staring at things and how they were built. So that when I started to leave pre-med and major in lots of other things in order to discover what I was, right. It wasn't necessarily true that I proved to be successful in beginning design at Berkeley.
Sure.
Made one assignment that was a great success, never made another success. It was my view and the teachers were not. So it took a long time to do any academic work.
Right. So, so you grew up in New Mexico. Berkeley is not exactly down the street.
No.
And so what drove you to Berkeley? Was it the prospective medical school?
No, Look magazine.
Oh.
Look magazine had a big feature on beatniks.
Right.
In San Francisco. The Coexistence Bagel Shop, City Lights, Lawrence Ferlinghetti.
Sure.
So I thought, what's near there?
Right, exactly. Right. I remember I moved out to San Francisco for 5 years in my late 20s and strolling through North Beach and coming across City Lights. And I'm just like, just the...
It's still here.
Right. I'm like, oh my gosh. And he was so accessible. Right.
He's still alive.
Right.
Today.
Right. But...
And he's so smart. He is so great.
Right. And so, so Berkeley, I guess that would have been before... Well, you got to SMU in '67. So a lot of the turmoil we think of in terms of Berkeley in the '60s was like People's Park was '69.
Right, that was
what was Berkeley like when you were there? Was it socially radical? Or?
Yes, one of the first things that I drove over to San Francisco to see from Berkeley was the demonstrations at the courthouse against House Un-American Activities Committee.
Oh, wow.
Berkeley students on the stairs being washed down by fire hoses. And I thought, yes, this is what activism is. Right. It was really kind of comforting, the idea that there were these cool people who were on the right side of history.
Right.
So that was true, and there was also a great deal, not as much as later, but a great deal of taking of anything that in a pill form to see what would happen to you. It was not something I was a little bit too cautious to take any pill until I saw what effect it had on someone else. I preferred they take it first.
Right.
But there were pills given away free by people at Sather Gate, the entrance to the campus, from tables.
Wow.
Try these. They're heavy.
Wow. And
so, I didn't take very many.
No, I understand. But, every time I went to Berkeley, I felt like, I always felt like I was in a different country. It didn't quite feel like I was still in the United States. It felt like its own little world.
Yes. I'm not even sure I remember what it looked like in the 60s because I was there 2.5 years ago, and the blocks didn't look the same to me. I don't even think I was completely conscious of what it looked like then.
Right.
Maybe it looks the same, but I remember the streets as much different from what it is now.
Sure. So did you did you wind up changing your major while you were at Berkeley, or
Many
did you?
times.
Okay, so what did you complete like a BFA, or
No.
was it medical related?
First medicine, then English. Best writing teacher I have ever seen, for whom I could not make a grade above C no matter what I did. Mr. McNulty, what a divine person. I don't think he liked women at all. And then maybe history. Oh, botany was in there for about a semester. Loved botany. Loved the teacher too. I mean, the chemical botany, so much fun. And then finally art. And then I kind of woke up to the fact that that Richard Diebenkorn didn't go to Berkeley. He went to University of New Mexico. And I talked to lots of people in the Bay Area, although I did take a course from Tebow one summer.
Wow.
Tebow. But there was more happening in graduate school at University of New Mexico. The Berkeley Art Department wasn't up to the Christopher Brown era yet. So I went there and finished.
Wow. So was Tebow was at UC Davis back in the day, right?
That's where I had to drive to take the class.
That would have to be a little bit of a hike, like probably an hour.
Yeah, an hour. It's not actually that.
Right.
Not actually that bad.
Right. So, so it sounds like you created your own liberal arts education there, and
Yes.
and it feels like a lot of that has influenced your work in a way. You know, when you start listing the different things on that list, either in your artistic work or the work you've done in the classroom, it seems like you were kind of creating your own degree plan that would kind of,
And Berkeley quite fostered that.
right.
There was a culture of your classes that you sat in on without majoring being more important to you than the ones you were signed up for, which sometimes got neglected. It was, and of course you paid for it in grades, but you didn't suffer in many other ways.
Right.
And I remember a teacher who was fabulous. I can't remember his name right now. He had a small philosophy class that everybody wanted, and the rule was that if you were sitting in, you sat on the floor, but if you were signed up for credit, you sat in a chair.
That's funny.
So you could barely get into the room because of the floor. That sort of thing was great.
That's not what I think of when I think of sit-ins at Berkeley.
No, that was otherwise.
So you wind up going to New Mexico for graduate school, and what was that experience like?
It was, because I was a native, really actually born there. It was kind of specially relevant to me, but it was serious, sort of male dominated. Fantastic faculty, serious. Sometimes the faculty had large-scale wars, and people who were your teacher could be fired and disappear in the middle of the class. There were some times. But Van Deren Koch taught there, who was an important art historian, and Helmut von Urfa, who was an important German art historian.
Those are both great names.
Yeah, aren't they? And John Totschel, who was an Austrian sculptor, a student of Barlach. Wow. So if you sought them out, the teachers were really wonderful. And their Tamarind Press for lithography was there. It was a very serious, delightful art department.
Great.
Kind of scary with critiques.
Right. So did you know that it was painting that you wanted to pursue? Did you?
Well, of course, I wasn't. Yes, I did painting, printmaking, drawing.
Okay.
In sculpture, I once one had to take everything. In sculpture, I once accidentally caught a pile of magnesium on fire with the acetylene torch, and it couldn't be put out.
No.
And it wasn't my fault, because they brought in a bunch of scrap metal and said, make sculpture out of this. So I had no idea it was magnesium.
Wow.
So I just tried to weld it.
Sure.
So there were adventures like that. I took ceramics, didn't do very well at it. Loved it, but my God, ceramics is a lot of work.
Right.
Yes, I thought I was going to be a painter, but I never made a single thing that was worth a damn, in my opinion or anyone else's. I was a really slow learner.
So that can't still be said today. So at what point do you feel like you turned the corner?
Oh, maybe 1990.
Oh, wow.
It took decades for me to work through the things that I couldn't do and learn to depend on the things that I could understand.
Okay.
That doesn't mean one should ever quit.
Right.
But even when I made things somebody liked, I knew it was no good until
right
about the early 90s. I started to finally figure something out.
Sure. Well, that's interesting that sometimes I feel like we're our biggest fan and our harshest critic, and so I think sometimes maybe it's a little tough to be objective with our own work, right?
Well, I had plenty of people around to be objective for me.
So, so who were those your colleagues?
Yeah. Yes. First of all, my teachers, and my competitors in grad school.
Right.
And then my colleagues at SMU.
Sure.
So if probably the best eye in the world, Larry Shoulder, would tell me every time I did something wrong, and that was frequently. So I really relied on him.
Right. But it's great to have a sounding board like that.
Yeah.
Someone that you can actually trust their opinion and know that it's not a wayward opinion. Right.
There were people in town, I probably didn't know them all, but people who had famous eyes, in my opinion. That is, you could take them to a print dealer, Larry, for example, and they would say, "This is marvelous," and you would say, "It is," and then you would see. They had discernment, and one of them was Larry. One of them was Bill Jordan, who had one of those great eyes. When Larry and Bill Jordan disagreed, it was hilariously good because they were both totally perceptive about everything.
Certainly.
I love to get them into disagreements.
That's awesome. So you complete your master's and you're looking for where to start that professional career. And how is it that you came by landing at SMU?
Well, I can say that all of these old guys, and mostly it was guys, who ran graduate programs knew each other, and they kind of talked about their graduates like potential baseball players.
Interesting.
And so it's quite likely that Van Daren Koku was very fond of me and liked my master's thesis and was very supportive. Said to Jerry Bywaters at SMU, "Oh, I think there's a gal here who'll do good work for you, Jerry. Smart." And so that was one of the positive responses to my letters.
Sure. And
of course, getting to know Jerry Bywaters, one could not want not to work for Jerry Bywaters. Right. He was a old-fashioned Texas prince. He could be a little bit of a tyrant, but he was brilliant and a gentle and wonderful character.
Sure.
And I arrived at Love Field for the interview, and he met me with my application letter pinned to his suit coat with a safety pin.
Oh, my goodness.
So I would know who he was. There was my letter.